Hello to everyone who's joined us so far. My name's Dion, or DJ for those who know me. But yeah, so I work for a company called LSD, and today we're going to be doing a webinar about LSD and how we accelerate cloud native development with adoption with Snyk and Rancher. So we've obviously got the guys from Snyk and Rancher. We've got Simon and Paul, who's going to be taking you guys through their bits, and I'll be taking you on the LSD story. This webinar is going to take on a different format to what you're typically used to. Instead of each of us sort of sitting here telling you about how awesome we are, we decided to tell a story. The story is about a fictional company called SuperAwesome Company. And while the company is fictional, the stories are true, and we run into the same things over and over again to various degrees. But first, let me take you through who LSD is and who we are as a business. So LSD was founded in 2001 as a pure play open source company who wants to inspire the world to embrace open principles and technology. In the last 20 years since our inception, we have assembled a team of passionate open source technologists who have designed and managed open source systems for some of the largest organizations in the world. LSD provides enterprise software subscriptions, resources, sysadmins, those sorts of things, professional services, and managed services to varying degrees, all from basic Linux resources to databases to all different manner of things. But what do we believe? Who are we, and why should you be working with a company like us? We've spent the last 5 years we've obviously been going since 2001, but over the last 5 years, we've been working on becoming a valued digital acceleration partner to our customers across the globe. We've answered the same questions and seen the same problems and know that all businesses are going through the same pain. This is why LSD created this LSD trip that I'm going to be going into a bit later. But first, on what we believe. So LSD is a human-centric business. We care a lot about our customers and actually solving problems for them specifically. We also believe that open everything is really crucial to solving problems in this day and age. We feel that not just open technologies, but collaboration and working with people and sharing shows that you get a lot better results as you go through this. We also believe that cloud native is this thing that a lot of companies are adopting at the moment, and it's the sort of foundation that is actually proving to show that businesses can scale and reach their markets and get things out faster, which is really crucial to them at the moment. We're a company that believes in freedom as a principle, and we don't want to lock people in. We don't want people to be locked into the certain technologies or the vendors or the providers that they choose, and this includes LSD. Everything that we do, everything that you see today from an LSD perspective is open. We use open source technologies, and you can take it, you can learn it, and you can go and start working on it. LSD has the services and the expertise for many, many years now, and that's where our value is and where we bring value to the customer. This falls directly into neutrality, where there's so many different technologies out there. It's a super complex world, and we work on all of the different technologies. So we don't dictate what companies should be using. We work with a lot of different vendors and a lot of different technologies, and we think all of them are really good, and they have their place in each of these different environments. Since over the last 12 months or so, obviously since COVID started, everyone was forced to go work from home, and what it actually gave LSD was this ability to become a remote business, this anywhere to anywhere model. We've got people that sit from across currently in South Africa. We've got people moving into Europe. We're looking at employing people across the globe now, and our customers span across the globe as well. We've done work all the way from Japan into Europe, into America currently. So it's a really wide breadth of where we offer our services to, and because we're a remote business, we focus on delivery instead of just being present. We really care about the fact that we need to be able to give value to the business, and this model allows us to do that. And then fun. This is such an amazing time around this space, and there's so many awesome things happening at the moment that we really love it, and all the people in our business just love doing this and enjoy doing it, and we have fun doing it. So that becomes really crucial to how we run our business, is making sure that we can have fun doing it. So like I said, we've become this sort of value digital acceleration partner to our customers, and we've answered the same questions and solved the same problems. So this is why LSD created what we call the LSD trip. This is effectively a fully managed engineered cloud native solution, leveraging the foundation of containerization, Kubernetes, and open source technologies. In this story, I'll take you through a few of these different solutions, how we help SuperAwesome company, and how our vendor partners were involved to solve the real problems for the client. There's obviously a lot of reasons customers engage with us, and as well as our vendors, but we just feel that this story is one that we see quite often now, and it's quite pertinent to the way the world is going at the moment. So that's really it. I mean, let's get to it. Let me start off by telling you about SuperAwesome. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my my presentation away and just sort of talk to you guys a bit about this, and tell you about how we solve this problem for the customer. So let's give you some background. So this fictional company, SuperAwesome company, is based in the UK, produced thingamabobs, which is really cool, and have done so for 40 years. And due to the current situation in the world with COVID and all those sorts of things, they've had to look at new channels to sell their products, such as changing their website to a commercial channel, as well as a mobile app. They also realized that this allows them to expand into new areas, as they're not limited anymore to physical region. As a traditional company, SuperAwesome company reached out to us, LSD, to partner with them on their journey into this new exciting world of cloud and scaling and automation. And LSD presented the LSD trip solution to them, and they demonstrated all of the different components. So SuperAwesome company came to see that LSD has the experience and the skill needed to really help them move quickly into this new phase of their business. As LSD starts engagements with all our customers with what we call the LSD map, they are basically hosted sessions where we sit with all of the different teams. That's infrastructure, development, security, networking, as well as the CRO. This engagement helps LSD to understand the current state and understand from the top where their future goals are. Like, do they want to go to cloud? Do they have a scaling requirement? Do they want to move into new regions with internationalizations? And making their teams more effective with automation and things like that. So each company is different, but LSD has, again, seen continuously that we're solving the same problems. SuperAwesome company did not know what to expect. They didn't know what was possible going down this route of cloud native. They also realized that this new paradigm that they're getting into is extremely complex. There's so many different tools, and they don't know what it is and how it actually works. So they don't have the skill at the moment to solve this problem right now. The main problem that they actually had was the time factor. They had to get their new plans out and to market very quickly, and they couldn't afford the time it would have taken them for 12 months or so to learn and break and make mistakes, which is required for you to build a really good, successful platform that looks after your customers. So this is where LSD created the trip and designed it to get started small and scale and grow as you need. And it doesn't require a large capital investment in order for you to get started down this road. Okay, so once LSD completed this trip map and we understood what they wanted to accomplish, we made some suggestions, and to make sure that their digital journey was successful, especially with the expected growth and traffic to their site. Remember, they're going from a static site now to a sales channel that is going to be their main income for the business. So SuperAwesome company had been doing some research, and they knew that they wanted to look at this containerization space. They already knew the benefits of going down that route, and they were already using Java for their applications, which is migratable into containers with some work. It's obviously we could help them with. So the first problem they had to solve was scaling. The route to cloud native really just starts with Kubernetes. That's where we want to get started. So as part of that, we deployed LSD Container, which is a fully managed, supported Kubernetes platform. This is now where Rancher comes in, where we deployed that. It could be any Kubernetes. Having applications running in containers on a Kubernetes platform means that SuperAwesome company could scale horizontally in minutes. They didn't have to ask sysadmins or IT anymore to create virtual machines, create load balancers, or change ports or firewalls or anything like that anymore. So Kubernetes gave them the cloud type solution on premise while they work on cloud adoption. It also means that they could start creating cloud native applications until they are ready for cloud deployments. So LSD chose Rancher for their Kubernetes platform due to the focus on cloud and multi-cloud, hybrid and multi-cloud deployments, which allows the company to use their current data center and scale into multiple different clouds as they need to. But yeah, let me not talk to you about that. Don't take my word for it. Let's hand this over to Simon, and I want him to basically take you guys through Rancher and where their offering comes in. So Simon, over to you.
So thanks very much, Dion. It's a really kind of good intro for this whole cloud native aspect and and what we do. So I'm Simon Robinson. I'm the Northern Europe Regional Director of Sales for Rancher Solutions at SUSE. Prior to the acquisition of Rancher by SUSE, I was at Rancher for 5.5 years, so I was sort of a founding member of Rancher. So I've been involved with this sort of containerization since day one, and also focused particularly on the UK and South Africa. So I've done a lot of work with LSD with a lot of our enterprise clients in the region. So what I just want to take you through then is, what part does Rancher play, and what are the considerations in terms of adopting this kind of strategy, and effectively, what are we actually trying to achieve here with this aspect? Now, Rancher has always had this tagline of around run Kubernetes everywhere. Now, effectively, the reason for this is that if you ask me to summarize Kubernetes, I'll summarize it as build code once, deploy it anywhere. And that's really what sits at the heart of what we're doing. So what are we actually trying to achieve then with containers? So what's the point? So, when you look at this cloud native aspect, and I always like to position the containerization against virtualization, because the thing is, the shift to containerization is every bit as much a shift in the delivery of IT as 20 years ago when we shifted from predominantly physical into virtual delivery. But the difference is that virtualization was effectively about the way that I try and, the way that I sort of rationalize it is that virtualization was about improving the usage and resiliency of infrastructure. Containerization is about delivering applications better, and purely and simple. Now, with that, we're looking to enable these application teams to innovate faster. So being able to bring things to market quicker, being able to differentiate yourself in the market. But I think most importantly from this, the ability to adapt. If you look at the situation, I mean, adapting to different social changes and different market conditions, and certainly with COVID, we've seen a massive flip around, and in some industries more than others. So if you look, for example, at what's happened with the retail industry, it's effectively business has shifted from like 95% being done in the high street, with the rest, the remainder being done on e-commerce platforms, to retailers effectively having to deliver their entire business. And so hence where those companies, and it's across many industries. I mean, we've seen like today, one of the major banks, Santander, has announced that it's cutting about 20% of its branches in the UK because of reduced footfall due to COVID. So there's a lot of shift to be able to scale and deliver these services effectively. So in addition to that, we're looking at really getting consistent operations, but also getting the portability benefits that you have. Now, really, to me, there's two things that containerization has been the driving force behind over the last 5 years. Firstly, that's the explosion in Devops practices that we've seen, real constructive end-to-end DevOps practices. And secondly, hybrid cloud delivery. Now, for me, containers have been able to deliver on that hybrid cloud vision far more completely than virtualization did, because you're removing yourself from any of these underlying infrastructure dependencies. You know, much as virtualization was a layer of abstraction, it doesn't abstract away as much as containers do effectively, because you would still have certain underlying dependencies. So we're trying to get this consistent operations, ensure the security, gain the benefits of portability so that you can start to collaborate between teams and get these services to market quicker and in a better fashion, basically. So the way that we're seeing them today, you know, primarily as as Dion's just been talking through, is looking at building out a cloud native application presence. Why? Because these things are fast, they are highly scalable, they are built for failure effectively. You know, when you look at applications in the legacy world, it's traditionally dependent upon the underlying infrastructure for resiliency, but cloud native applications are built for failure. They're built to scale, they're built to auto scale, and they have that resiliency built into the actual application layer. And then we also see quite a lot, actually, a lot of the re-architecture of monolithic applications. So trying to gain the benefits that you have of microservices-based applications. And this monolithic re-architecture, certainly 2 or 3 years ago, I think was the primary use case for looking at containerization. And then, you know, again, tied in with the hybrid cloud story, modernizing and scaling the infrastructure. So you get to optimize your costs, you get to use the best infrastructure for each use case. And Rancher, the way that we have our completely open approach, helps to enable this with the abstraction away on the licensing as well that we do, as well as the actual technology. Now, there's 2 things to keep in mind when looking at this, when looking at Rancher and Kubernetes as a whole, really. Firstly, 2 things that underpin everything. Firstly is that this is a strategic technology choice. It's not just about looking at, right, we've got an application we need to deliver today, we want to do some of this cloud native stuff, but it's also about how are we looking to utilize this technology on the 12, 24, 36, 60 month cycle effectively. And this is where, you know, working with our partners like LSD, we can really help to kind of advise on that strategy. And LSD, with this LSD trip, have the capabilities to take you along on each part of that journey with the backing of companies like Snyk and Rancher. So with that point, so the first point is that the strategic element. The second point is that this is about enabling innovation. You know, everything of what we do sits around innovation. So being able to utilize, you know, the most modern methods of delivering infrastructure, delivering applications, but also then looking at how are we going to be delivering the next breed of applications? What are we doing around artificial intelligence and machine learning? You know, we've seen a shift back towards bare metal for these kind of applications because of the performance benefits that you have above things like, you know, running these sort of AI applications on virtual machines. And by containerizing, basically the algorithms they run well within Kubernetes. So by introducing Kubernetes onto these bare metal, you can really start to deploy, scale, and I guess share really is the word, these applications. Then when you look at the edge, I mean, the edge to me, I mean, it's kind of even more so what VDI was, you know, 12 years ago to data center based virtualization. Edge Kubernetes, edge containerization is just massive opportunity and so much applicability across so many different industries. I mean, the stuff that we're involved in, the stuff that we're seeing is things like we're working with car manufacturers about utilizing K3S, which is our cut down distribution of Kubernetes, to run applications in every car that they produce. And with the way that Rancher handles this fleet management that we have, so we're able to manage up to 1 million clusters, 1 million Kubernetes clusters from a single point, you have the capability to manage this at an enterprise scale, replacing things like PCs in manufacturing, banking, utilizing this to deploy branch-based services so that you can manage from the data center and remove expensive like PC-based systems that require a lot of management and a lot of maintenance. And you know, Rancher, we've seen, on military applications as well. I mean, one of our 3 biggest clients in the world is the United States Air Force, and you know, effectively, I think our chief architect summed it best when he came back from KubeCon last year and said, I would summarize it by saying it was planes, trains, automobiles, and tanks. And that was effectively these kind of edge things. So it's really about, you know, what can you do with Kubernetes today, but how can you look to deploy this across the organization and gain the benefits in many areas. So now, this is where we get to this kind of maturity story, really. So, okay, that's great. That's what Kubernetes is. That's what we're trying to achieve with it. So, how is it being deployed today? Now, in the early days of containerization and Kubernetes, you'd have very much this decentralized approach, whereby you'd get these kind of skunkworks projects. They build what they need, they can innovate, they run it themselves, but that's not a scalable approach. When you look at adopting this at an enterprise level, you have a lot of issues there around consistency. You're not able to collaborate with these things because you don't have that common underlying platform and common APIs. And most importantly, at the enterprise level, you're not covering or ensuring that your enterprise security and compliance and governance is covered. And so when you centralize, when you look at centralize this, you can get to, you know, you can start to get the benefits from the automation, the integration of these tasks. But typically speaking, you know, historically, let's face it, standardization does not make, standardization and innovation do not generally make good bedfellows. And so this is what has always underpinned Rancher's strategy. Okay, so it's what we've always been looking to deliver, which is delivering a platform which enables you to integrate this into your centralized operations, but at the same time maintaining the flexibility for teams to build what they need. Goes back to, you know, this is why it's always been such a great partnership between Rancher and LSD, because of their approach to having the most open platform possible for clients. We, by the same token, provide, I mean, I've always kind of described Rancher as the anti-PaaS, because we share a lot of the same sort of functionalities, but we don't share any of that underlying opinionated nature. So what are the options? When you look at it with Kubernetes in the marketplace, I've just talked through the native option, which just, if you thought VM sprawl was an issue, container sprawl makes it look like a walk in the park. You know, it's not really a scalable approach. Then you have various options in the open source marketplace and various in the commercial. But this is where Rancher's first unique comes in that there is no commercial distribution of Rancher. Everything that we do is open source, 100%. So all we do is we sell a support contract on top of your implementation, and then provide the best Kubernetes support that you can get globally. There are other options in the marketplace when you look at the commercials, which are more geared towards effectively kind of locked-in platforms like OpenShift and Tanzu, for instance. Tanzu, I've got to say, I know it's a bit of an opinion, but it's not really quite ready, so to speak. But nevertheless, VMware produce some fantastic technologies. OpenShift is, you know, again, it's another enterprise option, tends to be much more expensive in terms of implementation than Rancher, and it's a bit less flexible. But anyway, we see these are the different options that you have within the marketplace, and you know, Rancher is unique. I mean, why would you choose Rancher of those options? So Rancher is, without a shadow of doubt, the most widely deployed Kubernetes platform in the world. We have over 37,000 active deployments with over 22,000 active members of our Slack community. It's always been a massively popular product, so to speak, a massively popular set of tools in the containerization space. Now, we were founder members of, and we still, our former CEO, now head of engineering and innovation at SUSE, Sheng Liang, sits on the board of the Cloud Native Compute Foundation, so we've been involved in that since day one. And you know, we are the second largest provider of enterprise Kubernetes support. That's changing rapidly. So although we're the second largest provider globally of commercial support, we do have the most widely deployed platform. But if you look at the names, to me, it's the names of the clients, you know, every bit as much as the numbers. You know, we've got some of the biggest and, you know, most well-known, and also some of the most critical use cases in the world. You know, people like Apple, Disney, who are just end-to-end, be it a Disney cruise liner, be it a your Disney Plus streaming service, or the theme parks. It's all run and based on Rancher. You know, notably for the South African market, I mean, my biggest client personally, and is ABSA. Obviously second biggest bank in Africa, and they replaced a 3-year OpenShift system with Rancher and obtained massive cost savings and such like. So anyway, we can provide further details around any of these kind of things afterwards, but effectively, you know, we are the most widely deployed platform. So what is it that we are giving you? So the way that we've always viewed this is that in order to run a Kubernetes, an enterprise Kubernetes management platform, there's these, we have what we call this thing the cube cake. Now, effectively, what you have here is 3 buckets of services, so to speak. So you have, firstly, the underlying ability to deploy any CNCF certified distribution of Kubernetes, to be able to layer over these services for these clusters, and to be able to deploy that on any infrastructure. So there are 2 uniques that Rancher has here. Firstly, as I say, we're just anti-lock-in. We don't even tell you that you have to use our distribution of Kubernetes. Obviously, it makes things easier, and we're able to bug fix and patch, etc., our own distribution. But you can run, you have, for instance, RKE. You then have K3S for utilizing in the edge and on branch use cases, etc. But when it comes to cloud, again, nobody can really touch what we can do in terms of multi-cluster and multi-cloud. We've always had a multi-cluster approach. But as well as being able to deploy, say, to utilize RKE to deploy to Amazon EC2 instances or Azure instances, you can also deploy and manage to hosted Kubernetes services from the hyperscalers and gain some benefits around much wider lifecycle management. So that's that first layer. Then the second layer, we have, excuse me, we have the operations focused tool sets. Now, I mean, this is a bit of a soapbox moment for me. I mean, the thing is, I always say, I think Kubernetes is, you know, proving the technology is 10% of the question. How do we integrate this into our existing operations, into our existing operational processes, our practices, our teams? That's where the rub is. You know, that's where effectively, you know, because it affects so many different aspects of IT, that's where we come in by providing this sets of tools, and where LSD come in to help you with the expertise around building those practices around it. So within this set of operations tools, you have the ability to authenticate and secure any way that you want. You get things like, you know, benchmarking CI against CIS standards. You have full roles-based access, completely granular roles-based access policy, pods, network configurations and such like. The ability to enforce configurations of infrastructure and Kubernetes and such like by providing cluster templates and such like. So you have this full operations tool set, and then on top of this, this third area is the kind of DevOps focused tool set, so the build and run aspect. So we'll provide you with this stuff out of the box, so it's things like your service mesh, like integration with Terraform, having the dashboards, how do the developers consume it, so how do you access these Helm charts and how do you consume those and deploy them, and things like and CI/CD integration. So, you know, we provide you with all of these tools out the box, so you're able to build and run from day one utilizing what Rancher gives you out the box. However, Rancher is architected to an API first. It's 100% API, it's 100% open source, and so, for instance, we give you a Jenkins pipeline out the box, but it's not designed to replace your existing mature pipeline or TeamCity or Bamboo or, you know, Ansible, whatever you want to use effectively. So that's the set of services that we provide, but you have the flexibility to deploy as you want. So why would you do this? I think, you know, I mean, Dion's kind of touched on this previously. So really enable DevOps transformation, start to gain the benefit of cloud native economics, really collaborate between teams because of the portability that you have, because of everything being encapsulated. So, you know, the operating system, the application, or the infrastructure dependencies, everything encapsulated in that immutable object. And then strategically, you know, why do I want to look at this? Well, I need to look at how we're going to be running these sorts of applications going forward. For developers, you get to continue to work with all of these tool sets. You get to deploy, you know, these modern microservices applications. And I think what's really important at the moment is being able to attract and keep this developer talent. You know, Kubernetes, you want to be utilizing these, you know, these latest approaches to app dev and app delivery, and that's what we really enable. And then for IT operations, I think crucially, you know, because whichever way you slice it, Kubernetes is still a complex beast. We Rancher will still give you the ability to access wherever you like, but we also strip out a lot of that complexity and provide a very operations-friendly means of access and deployment. So we have full you get to manage multiple clusters, multi-clouds, really accelerate that adoption and provide the enterprise governance and compliance consistently throughout the organization. So there's going to be some further material that will be sent through, but one thing just as a quick bit of information is that we provide a huge amount of content. So we do a lot of work with our partners like LSD, with our technology partners like Snyk, and producing a lot of content around enabling your organizations to adopt Kubernetes. So we do free online Kubernetes and Rancher introductory training every week. All of this is recorded and posted to our YouTube channel, to our website. We also then follow this on with more deep dive subject specific topics. We're in our online masterclasses. And we run monthly online meetups where, you know, it's very much nothing to do with pitching. It's just all about what's happening in Kubernetes. I'd also advise you to have a look at Adrian Goins's channel. It's called Coffee and Cloud Native. So Adrian is the open source community manager for SUSE Rancher. This is his own channel. It's not sponsored or run by Rancher. It's a very, very objective thing. But he scrapes 200 news sources each day and just provides an update around what's going on with Kubernetes, and it's a really, really fantastic resource. And also we produced an online platform. It's a self-paced learning course with an operator certification at the end. So hopefully I didn't get too opinionated there, Dion, and hopefully that was relatively useful. So with that, I shall pass back to you. I will now go on to the question side, and I think I've pretty much managed to keep it to 20 minutes there. So thank you for your time.
Awesome, thank you very much, Simon. I mean, I can talk about this stuff for hours and days on end. It's awesome to watch the presentations every time, and interesting talking about the CNCF now. LSD is also now officially members of the CNCF. We've now also joined that, so that's really awesome. We're really excited about that. And the CNCN, the Coffee and Cloud Native, I actually watch his stuff as well, and it's really informative. So that's really awesome. So thank you for that. So as you can see, you know, Rancher was a great option. It really, you know, now that they really provided a great service there, and from a technology perspective. And now that we've got to look at the platform and we've got it in, if they've got they host their cloud native applications and microservices, we have to look at what is the next step now for SuperAwesome company. And the next step is really automation. So once or SuperAwesome company could scale and do so in a seamless way, they quickly realized that having manual processes and releasing versions of their applications manually created too much delay, and it also created consistent problems. So this is where LSD deployed the LSD Automate solution. This is a fully managed DevOps automation toolchain built on Kubernetes. It also integrates tightly with the likes of the Rancher and the Snyk. And as you can see, Rancher also offers a lot of those tools that would be utilized in this, and we integrate with that really nicely. They're tightly integrated together into their existing tools and their existing environment. It provides them also with the Git repository where all their code is stored in version, and that now becomes a source of truth. LSD Automate is actually delivered with pre-built scaffolds for popular programming languages. So from their perspective, that would be Java. It's designed to address the majority of the SDLC automation use cases that you come across. It also allows the product teams to jumpstart onto this cloud native, or Kubernetes native rather, CI/CD by leveraging LSD Automate scaffolds, and then with the ability to customize and extend them as they go. LSD Automate also includes infrastructure as code deployments, allowing you to build in infrastructure services with code with on-premise as well as in the cloud, and providing config management and as estate management and all those different things that comes with the requirement from a DevOps perspective. So LSD Automate provides SuperAwesome company with as well as what we call DevOps on LSD. This is another service that we provide. The service gives them access to the LSD resources, and the LSD resources will help them build automation from scripts to playbooks to pipelines and all of these different things. We basically are there to automate everything for them. They don't have the skill or the time at this moment to be able to build all of this out and get it done as quickly as they need to do. But what it does, it gives them access to all the different LSD resources that we have. And depending on their requirement, the specific people would then get involved to solve that actual problem. So that was a way for them to really jumpstart that automation and getting into that phase very, very quickly. The next thing that we noticed was the visibility across the board was really lacking. So as with many companies and the tools that they provide, they all come with great monitoring. You know, we always listen to different vendors providing tools, and they all come with great monitoring. The problem, though, is the developer or technician that has to solve a problem when something comes up, they have to look at one platform or dashboard to find the resources and the metrics and all those sorts of things. They then have to look at another platform to log into that one to look at the security output or the network or the latency or the whatever, and then they have to log into another platform to pull the logs to look at what the logs are saying for the application in their containers or their VMs. So this creates the swivel chair effect. You know, this means that the troubleshooting process takes a lot longer than it actually needs to. And we solve this by deploying what we call LSD Observe. This is an open observability platform designed to monitor all the components and platforms in your new cloud native platform in a single pane of glass. It monitors the metrics, the logs within the applications. It does traces as well as application performance monitoring for your applications running, as well as SLA uptime. So with this platform, LSD pulled all the details from Snyk and Rancher along with APM and logs all into one single platform. This reduced the time it took for the problem to be found and ultimately remediated by 80%, and leading directly to better customer experience and satisfaction, as well as a higher revenue as downtime was significantly reduced. So now that the company has been able to scale to meet their user demand, they've also been able to automate their deployment and of their applications as well as their services, increasing velocity, and also reducing the human errors synonymous with manual processes, and then providing the single pane of glass for teams to troubleshoot the problems. They had to look at security. So security is very important, for any business and any organization. And it really is something that you can fit in at any point along this journey. It is not something that has to come before or after anything else. It is crucially important everywhere, and you need to look at it at all times. So for the company, they had two major concerns. The firstly was the fact that their passwords and their secrets were actually stored in plain clear text, most of it sitting directly into the code that actually being deployed for the applications. So we had to deploy what we call LSD Secure, which gave them a vault, which keeps their secrets and their authentication secure. So their applications are talking to a vault instead of things being passed directly through clear text on the actual container or the actual code itself. The second concern they had was the container images, their security, the libraries, and the code that they're actually writing, and making sure that those are free from vulnerabilities and those can be deployed, as well as making sure that those are moving as close to when the code is being created rather than picking up on them at a later stage. So this is really where I want to hand over to Paul from a Snyk perspective, where we got in touch with them and they managed to really solve this problem really, really well. So Paul, I'm going to hand over to you so you can take us through Snyk and what you guys are doing to solve this problem.
Thank you very much for that handover there, Dion. Yes, exactly. I'm just trying to share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, here we go. Here we go. 2 seconds, 2 seconds. There we go.
There you go.
Okay, so absolutely, SuperAwesome company have done, one of the major transitions really, and that's going from being a business that had an online presence that wasn't a sales channel to the sales channel being primarily online. And that comes with a number of different challenges, really. You have to develop fast, you have to reach different markets, you have to ensure that your website is now secure. And that's every single layer of that website. And what we're saying with Snyk is it is a developer first platform to allow you to look at that overall security posture, and where possible also allow you to fix it and understand where the problems are arising. Now, if we look at the developers in SuperAwesome company, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they were writing some applications, leveraging some open source code, and then really that would be their job complete. They'd then throw that over to operations who would, as Simon was saying, spin up a VM somewhere, either on premise or in rack space or something, and that's where that would be deployed. We know now it's changed. We want this scalable, agile architecture that can host in a resilient way the application. And a lot of those jobs have actually fallen onto the developer rather than operations. This is what that DevOps movement's about. So within that same Git repository where originally they'd just find an application, now they'll also find a Docker file for the containers. They'll also find some Kubernetes Helm charts, deployment YAMLs, Terraform code for that infrastructure as code as well. And that means that the developers' roles changed. They've now got to understand how to make resilient, secure software through all of these layers. And this is really where Snyk has come to help. So in the past, you may have found different tools that can help with each of those layers. And as Dion was saying, the swivel chair effect, you'd have to log into all these platforms to find out where your security vulnerabilities lie. What we're saying at Snyk is we have got a part of our single platform that can look at all of these different layers of the application. So the custom code that your developers are writing, we can look for weaknesses and vulnerabilities in that using our SaaS tool. The open source or source control analysis, we can look there as well, and we can find vulnerabilities and license compliance issues in the open source code. We can also look into your containers. Now we can do this in two ways. We can look at your registries, or we can actually try and build your container from a Docker file and find the vulnerabilities and tell you which layers they come into. And then underneath all that, we look at your infrastructure as code. Now, LSD are looking for the secrets and helping you, making sure you've not got your secret keys or API keys in there. We're also looking for misconfigurations as well on that other side. So have you got any S3 buckets that are unencrypted? Are you allowing ingress? Are these containers running as admin? So we're making sure that all of these layers, the developer and the security team has intelligence. Now, we do this in a different way than traditional security tools, who would traditionally, around this time, once the developers have written the code, committed it to a Git repository, pushed it through a CI/CD build, then the security team would get their hands on it and say, right, no, this won't do. Back to the start again. Do not collect $200. And the developers would then have to fix all the vulnerabilities that security team had found. So now DevOps has moved to DevSecOps. What that means is we're not removing the need for a security team. We're augmenting the security team with tools and other items for the developers. We're allowing the developers to have that knowledge first of all, and giving the tools to remediate these problems themselves. Not to remove the security team, as I said, but often security teams have seen to be a kind of bottleneck point. There's more developers than security teams, so there's always a waiting period. However, if we can remove, say, 20, 30% of the work that security team has to do up front by doing this, shifting left with the developers, we can actually reduce that bottleneck. And now that we've gone online with SuperAwesome company, we're now going to have to innovate faster because we're going to have more competition. We're going to have less barriers to entry for our competition. So being able to develop fast while staying secure is now critical. We're in a vertical that we need to be seen. We need to have the best user experience. So we believe at Snyk, in order to have this shift left or this DevSecOps style of working, first of all, you need to trust and empower your developers. Part of that's the tooling, but part of that is also a change in the way you actually work as an organization. So you have to trust the developers. It's sometimes called ultimate ownership. where you actually push that ownership onto the developers and you trust them to actually make the right decision. And that's the only way to scale, really, because we don't just want to incrementally add to that security team. We want to make sure everyone's part of that. And whether that's a security champion or everyone involved in that team, that's what we want to do. But also we want to automate fixes as well. So where possible, let's not even stop the developer from their train of thought and push automated fixes for them to add at any time. And then security depth. Ultimately, everything comes down to the database. If we're giving the developers false positives or missing vulnerabilities, then it's not going to be a true tool that's trusted, and it's not going to be a tool that's actually adopted. And adoption of this tool is critical. Now, let me just show you a quick example of the day in life of a developer at SuperAwesome company. So if I'm ready to push out my new version of the app on the CI/CD build, whether we're doing continuous deployment or we're releasing weekly, it would be the same kind of thing. I'd log in to my platform. You see here, I am actually working on a lot of different websites. SuperAwesome company is a very busy place to work, but I'm going to switch onto my Snyk code application here. And this is what I'm trying to push live for that sales channel. So my dashboard's telling me some tasks that I need to complete. Automatic pull requests, these are my vulnerabilities, and these are my license compliance checks. You can see we've got all the integrations there that you'd need to actually integrate this into your DevOps pipeline. And we've got the source control tools, container registries, deployed environments, IDE plugins as well for your developers to actually find the vulnerabilities as they're coding. And we've got vulnerability management or SIEM tools. Lots of different integrations. We can go over that another time. But this developer would log in and they'd say, okay, what you see a report from each different stage of the application, which relates to this iceberg picture I showed you before. I'm going to have a report for the custom code, open source, containers, and infrastructures code. This is where the internet evades me, but here we go, we're loading it now. Hopefully you can see that. So if you look at my scan for my application here, you'll see actually I've got a report for each of these areas. So I can go into each of these areas and fix any vulnerabilities I found. In the package.json, we can look at the vulnerabilities from the open source code. And you can see here, they're fully arranged by the Snyk priority score. So the developer doesn't have to parse or organize the information. Whatever's at the top is the next best action. And to fix this item, I would go and click that button and create a pull request, which we pushed over to GitHub. And it's as easy as that, really. And that's one of the best things about this platform is we're taking away that decision from the developers, or we're giving them the information to make the decision. The next stage is then, actually, let's look at this application in terms of the container that it's getting deployed upon. So here we've also scanned the Docker file. Now, when I'm scanning the Docker file, we're looking at two separate things. First of all, what's the base image for that container? And second of all, what user instructions are adding vulnerabilities as well? So here we've got the report for the container. You'll see at the top, we actually add an extra item. Now, this is about choosing the correct base image for your containers. Developers have not got much insight into all the alternatives that are available, or even if their container and the version they're using is the least vulnerable. So Snyk creates this table around all the public base images. This means the developer can understand what their current image is, along with the risk profile, and what the best possible base image to use is. And you can see here, just by changing one line in my container, I can reduce by over an order of magnitude the number of vulnerabilities. And again, we give you that button. I can click open a fix pull request, fix that container. That would then go live with so many less vulnerabilities, it's unbelievable. And then I can further reduce that by looking at my user instructions and seeing what versions I'm bringing in as well. And this is done at the bottom here, tells me all the vulnerabilities, what version the vulnerability comes in, where it's fixed, and then I can just go and do an apt-get update in terms of my container in order to get that latest version and remove that. Now, there's actually another step that people undergo for containers, and that's called container hardening. And according to CIS benchmark, what you have to do is remove software that you don't need from a container. And we can help you here at Snyk by looking at the full dependency tree and giving you a view where each of your dependencies are bringing in vulnerabilities. You can then decide yourself, I don't think I actually need curl on my live running container. It's there doing its setup tasks. Why don't I remove that towards the end with the user instruction and therefore remove 2 vulnerabilities? Now, if you've got the understanding of where the vulnerabilities are coming in, you can work hard then to remove those vulnerabilities going forward, or at least negate them. You may decide on the front end using a WAF to negate that stuff, or you may decide that actually it's not reachable. At least we've noted it, but we don't have to do anything now. So we've got the 3 views upon how to make the container clean: the base image, the user instructions, and then removing dependencies that you don't need. Okay, so let's say we've gone through the first 2 steps now. We've got the application clean and we've got the container clean. Now, the next step is getting that container and pushing it live on a Kubernetes cluster so that your customers can buy your thingamybobs. So what we do is we can actually deploy the Snyk agent on, if I switch to a different application, on a live Kubernetes cluster. And here you can see, after deploying the Snyk agent, I'm looking for 2 separate things. First of all, how is it set up? Are there any misconfigurations in that cluster that I can fix? And over in the right-hand side, you see we've run 6 tests and we've failed 5 of them. So we're not doing very, very good, to be honest, but we can go and address those. The next thing is all the vulnerabilities on the containers. Now, you may say we've already fixed the vulnerabilities on the containers at the previous step. But as you know, if you've gone live, your development branch will then diverge from what's live over the coming weeks before your next release. So you want to keep an eye on both because new vulnerabilities are found every day. So you want to make sure that you're monitoring what's in live as well as what's in production. And this is what we're doing here. But the major thing we want to address here is the misconfigurations around this infrastructure as code. So I need to find the Git repository where that Kubernetes cluster was actually defined. And if I go down here, you'll see this is the Snyk container demo, and the deployment.yaml here is actually the YAML file that created that Kubernetes cluster. So if I go into that, again, you'll see the report about the vulnerabilities. Slightly different than the others. Here, you're actually seeing the live, the live representation of that file. And on the left are the problems that you found with it. But as I see at Snyk, we're not just here to show you the problems, we always want to educate and show you how to fix as well. So if I click on one of the items here, the CPU limit, it will say, this is the issue, CPU limit is not defined. This is the impact, and this is how it can be resolved. So as a developer, I'll know now to go and copy and paste that line, add that in around line 42 where you see the eyeball, and then redeploy and send that live. And then my CPU limits would be in that cluster. But you may say, actually, I don't care. I want my cluster to take up all of that CPU. In that case, you can always go and turn that rule off. The rules are there for you to turn on and off based off the profile that you want to flag. And obviously, again, not giving those false positives to the developers. So that was a quick whistle-stop tour in terms of Snyk. I've gone through the open source, the containers, and the infrastructure as code. The last thing just to mention is that we're also looking at the custom code. This is a new capability, so we have a SAST capability as well. It's just been launched, so if you'd like to see that, let's arrange a follow-up and I can take you through that SAST capability as well. It's all exciting and we're hoping it's going to be at least 5 to 10 times faster than traditional SAST tools as well. So with all that together, we think we can help SuperAwesome company increase that cadence of deployment while staying secure and having visibility overall through their platform of the vulnerabilities that exist. Thank you. Back to you, Dion.
Awesome, Paul. Thank you very much for that.
No problem.
Before I continue, let me just say that we are going to go to a Q&A after this. So if you can put your questions in the chat bar, and at the end of it, we'll go through a Q&A and go through all of those. So now that we have seen both Rancher and Snyk and what we've done up to this point, lastly, SuperAwesome company had to look at connecting services together and providing services to internal and external users. Once moving to cloud and microservices, companies quickly realized that the majority of operational problems that arise when moving to a distributed architecture are ultimately grounded in two major areas: networking and observability. Troubleshooting distributed microservices is orders of magnitude worse with so many different moving parts. LSD deployed what we call LSD Connect, which is a fully managed API and service mesh. With a managed API service, the client was able to create an API marketplace. The marketplace is meant for all different teams and business units to create their own applications and services and make them available through APIs to the rest of the different teams. This is internal. This way, each team was looking after their own applications, but having them used within the larger business became seamless. The company also then realized they could open up their APIs and provide this externally to potential customers that wanted real-time data, place orders, or book deliveries through this API marketplace. This was a revenue stream they never even considered. So after that, we have to look at the service mesh. The platform provides a mesh network connectivity, service load balancing, edge load balancing, multi-cluster connectivity, and most importantly, service observability. This is all integrated, as we've mentioned before, into their LSD Observe, which basically gives them that single pane of glass view. So SuperAwesome company was able to quickly change their business into a more digitally focused one, harnessing LSD's experience in this space and reducing the time it would have taken them to do it alone. Obviously, we're using this great technology from Rancher and Snyk, and together with their vendor support and their help, we ensured success for the customer. So what we're going to do now is say thank you to everyone for listening to our presentation. We're going to go into I just want to check that everyone can see the final slide. And now we're going to go into a Q&A session. If anyone has got any questions, please feel free to ask them, and we will be able to answer them for you guys.
We do have one question in the chat.
If our company is looking for something like a hybrid cloud model where some of our footprint is on-prem and some of it is physical rack servers, would we be able to implement these cloud-native tools like Snyk over all of it? So I'll leave you to answer that question. I know what the answer is from our perspective. From a Snyk perspective, how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So we ourselves have a number of deployment methods, but let's take the SaaS deployment. What we can do is integrate with any of your tools on-premise or in cloud or in virtual private cloud using a number of methods like the Snyk broker. That means we can integrate across that DevOps pipeline, whether it's developers' machines, CI/CD tools, even if they're on-premise. What we also do is have a different deployment method, which is a cloud-native appliance. Essentially, that's a single tenanted version of our SaaS platform that you run on your own virtual private network, AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. So there's lots of deployment methods and integration methods that we can do to ensure that we can connect with all of your DevOps pipeline, whether on cloud or on premise. Yes.
Awesome. So obviously from a technology perspective, one of the major benefits of what cloud native really gives you is the fact that you're going to be able to develop things on premise with this hybrid cloud model, as well as then scale into cloud. One of the things that, as Simon mentioned quite a lot as well in his section that he spoke about, was you want to be able to create this environment where you can basically deploy anywhere. You want to be able to manage it all over the place. You don't want to be locked into one specific thing. You want to create cloud native, not a specific vendor's name native or if a specific cloud named native. We want to create this all over the place. And it's a great thing that Snyk, as well as Rancher, and the way that LSD deploys this stuff is really native to doing it in that fashion. I don't know if there's anything you want to add with regards to that question, Simon, or if I've magically answered it already for you.
No, I think you've covered it. I mean, at the end of the day, it just becomes, the point to that abstraction is about, we don't care. you know, if it's on-prem. We don't care if it's cloud effectively, because you have that ability to manage, you know, from that direct point. So yeah, absolutely. No, I think you covered it really well. Thanks.
Yeah, so one of the things that we see all the time is when we're talking to companies that that want to move into this cloud space, some of them follow this process of let's lift and shift it into the cloud, and then we'll optimize when we get there. I'm not a big fan personally of that model. I feel like if you're shifting into the cloud, it's going to make it more expensive, and you're going to be deterred from going that route. What we do with the cloud native model is really trying to imitate or create this cloud environment for you in your data center, so you can first optimize, first make sure things are written in the correct way, make sure that things are running in a cloud native way so they can easily be moved into the cloud and then be utilized there in an effective way, so that you can actually gain the benefit of going into this cloud space. So this is something we run into all the time, and I know that people, obviously everyone has got this goal. Everyone, like a lot of companies, have got goals around we have to move to the cloud by X date, or we're shutting down data centers, or whatever the goal is, and that's all cool, and I agree with going that direction in principle, but we need to make sure that we do this in the correct way. We need to make sure that you're not ending up in a worse position than what you were in your own data center. I think that's really important as well. Awesome. I don't see any more questions. I don't know if anyone has got any more questions for the team, for myself, or anything like that. Otherwise, the presentation will be made available. We're going to be putting it on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. You guys will have access to it on your YouTube channel. We'll also be reaching out to all the participants, just sending out all the details for the different team members, the people that were presenting here today. You can get in touch with us. I hope everyone can see my slide there, just with the website addresses, our LinkedIn or Twitter handles, or email addresses. Please reach out, send us direct messages, and we're happy to go and have a conversation with you based on what your specific requirement is. As I say, everyone is different. Even business units inside the same business are completely different, and we understand that. But for the most part, there's always going to be these very specific topics that come up that are problems that we know we can solve. And I think between the three of us, I think we can definitely solve most problems that you throw away. So if there's no other questions, thank you very much for joining the webinar. I've really enjoyed it. I actually like this model, telling you about this this weird company that sells thingamabobs. And yeah, that way I hope you guys got across what we were trying to say. And thank you, Paul and Simon, for joining me on this journey, man. It's been really awesome.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. And yeah, we will no doubt hopefully be hearing from some of you soon. And yeah, as Dion says, feel free to get in touch and yeah, speak again at some point.
Awesome.
Thank you
very much. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.